I just decided I needed to make a change. I literally sold virtually everything I owned. I bought a one-way ticket to Hawaii, stayed in a hostel for a month, and found a job as a bell attendant with Fairmont Hotels and Resorts. The big one was the interpersonal. I had been in management roles outside hospitality before, so I generally understood the purpose, the roles, the responsibilities, and that sort of thing. I had to translate it all into the hospitality space. The big one for me is the trend towards wellness, holistic wellness, taking care of yourself while traveling. I think that the pandemic was a big wake-up call for everybody. I think that where AI can have a really big positive and additive benefit to hospitality.
Hello, everyone. It's time for another exciting episode of our podcast, Reshape Hospitality with Tech. I'm your host, Maria, and here's my co host, Kazim. Our guest today is Bill Muench, the owner of AG Hospitality. He will be sharing his amazing career journey with us, plus, he will be giving us some valuable insights into the hospitality industry. Welcome, Bill, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Maria and Kazim. I appreciate it.
We found that most of our guests that we interviewed started their career at the front desk officer, housekeeping managers, or even as hospitality consultants. So we would love to know about your career background story. How did your career journey started? And I'm curious, what hospitality experience motivated you to work in this industry?
Absolutely. So I didn't really come through the traditional way. I didn't go to hospitality school or anything like that. I actually have a degree in history. When I was younger, I planned on being an educator, and by the time I finished college, I was, to be frank, a little bit burnt out on the educational system. I got into sales. I did that for a little while, but it wasn't really where my passion was. But I really enjoyed interacting with clients and customers and that sort of thing. So at one point in my mid 20s, I just decided I needed to make a change. I literally sold virtually everything I owned. I bought a one-way ticket to Hawaii, stayed in a hostel for a month, and found a job as a bell attendant with Fairmont Hotels and Resorts. So I entered the hospitality workplace through being a bellman at a resort in Hawaii, which isn't a terrible way to do it. And then from there, basically, I just wanted to learn everything I could. Whenever there was an opportunity to learn a new position, work somewhere else in the hotel, I took it. So I worked, pretty much every single front of house position you can work. I made my way into management eventually, and then just, moved around with the company. And again, just sought out opportunities to gain more experience, do more things, work at different types of properties. So whether it was a resort or a city center hotel, or whether it was a union property or non-union or branded or independent, just basically, every couple of years doing something new so that I got a good understanding of how everything worked. From there, once I got into independent hotels, I really appreciated how we were able to get things done quickly. If you had a good idea, if the leadership or if the ownership agreed with it, or you made a good case for it, you're often able to implement it quickly. One one example to the contrary of that, when I was working with a large branded company, was we needed to rename a room type in a hotel because it was called a moderate room. No one looks at a booking engine and says, "Oh, I want the moderate room." You know, it wasn't the best room, but the branding was bad on it. It took months to literally get approval because it had to get approved on property, regionally, through corporate, through all these different people to rename this room type. Whereas when I got into independent hotels, if we wanted to do something like that, I would walk next door to my GM. I'd say, "Hey, we need to make this change." Okay, that makes sense. And an hour later, it's done. So that type of flexibility I found very interesting and freeing to a certain extent. So, um, and then what I kind of touched on, but what encouraged me again to hospitality is again the personal relationships, getting to help people The thing that I didn't enjoy with sales when I was younger, and I've gotten over it at this point, but when I was younger, was you would meet people, you would come up with solutions to their problems, you'd chat with them, you'd spend time with them, and then at the end, how many would you like to buy? How many units can I sell you? You know, it's the ask, which I wasn't as comfortable with when I was younger. But then I actually ended up putting on a conference for my company, in sort of like a conference manager role because we were a small company, and I really enjoyed that. So that's kind of what pointed me towards hospitality. It was like, oh, I get to work with people, I get to develop relationships, I get to do all these great
Mhm.
things, make their days better and such, but not so much ask them to then buy something from me at the end.
In building your career path, do you remember any mentors who had played a big role in your early career success? Could you share the name with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that my biggest one, his name is Keith Siebenaler. He's a general manager with Kimpton now. He's actually opening a brand new property in Denver. I think it's at the end of this year. But he was my first, he's the guy that hired me with Fairmont Hotels. If I'm remembering correctly at the time, he was the guest services manager. And I came into a job fair essentially and said, hey, I want to be a concierge. And he sat down and he was like, okay, well, how much do you know about the big island of Hawaii? I was like, well, I just moved here. It's like, okay, well, maybe not a concierge. You know, you kind of need to know a little bit about the area. You need to know a lot of things, and you know, you might not have that knowledge yet. But let's get you in as a bellman. You know, get you in the door, see what you can learn, see what you can do, and such. And he was always very supportive throughout my career. He was the one that supported my movement to management, which moving into management from an hourly position, especially a very entry level hourly position, can be very challenging. Lots of times it doesn't happen at that same property. You know, you would be an hourly in one place, and then you would go to another property in management. But I actually ended up managing my old department, which had its own challenges and such, because you know I was now tasked with leading this team of people who essentially taught me everything I knew about hotels at the time, you know, how to be a bellman, how to stand, you know, all these different things. And then it was like, oh, but now you're my boss. And that was very challenging for everybody, you know. So I did that for a while before I decided it was time to move on to my next opportunity and move properties and such. But yeah, Keith was great. We still keep in touch every now and then. I always said that he is the type of mentor or the type of manager who he'd be the perfect manager if he was actually a little bit less nice to people. And because when he was young, he was very accommodating to everybody, even if it meant all the extra stresses and such fell on him. So I would often joke, you just need to be a little bit meaner, Keith, and you'd be perfect. Yeah, he was a huge influence on me.
As you talk about the challenges, so I just wanted to know what were some of these struggles and challenges.
The big one was the interpersonal. You know, I had been in management roles outside hospitality before, so you know, I generally understood the purpose, the roles, the responsibilities, and that sort of thing. I had to translate it all into the hospitality space, and because even when I was a bellman, I always ask questions. You know, I'm that guy that if I don't understand, I tend to say, "Can you explain to me why?" Like, I'm not questioning your answer, but I want to understand why you made that decision or why it should be this way and that sort of thing. Because I want to get it right next time. I don't like being ignorant, and I don't use that in a bad way. Ignorance is not knowing something. I don't like not knowing. And that's, you know, that's helped me pretty well across my career because it's allowed me to gather a lot more knowledge and insight and such than if I just said, oh, okay, sure, yeah, we'll do it that way, but not really knowing why. So that I would say that that was some of the biggest challenge right there.
You are the owner of AG Hospitality, and it is a consulting firm that helps hotels with operational and technology services. Can you tell us a little bit more about how did you start your own consulting firm? What are your long-term goals? What opportunities do you see for your consulting firm? What types of consultancy services do you offer to hotels?
Sure, absolutely. So AG Hospitality, we're based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. We have people across all the four major continental U.S. time zones. basically, I got into consulting back into 2019 when I was still working as a director of operations for a property. And the owners of that property were opening another property nearby. Um, my background outside, I guess I would say my family background.
Mm-hmm.
I always joke I'm the black sheep of my family because I'm the only person who's not in IT or technology. Everyone in my family is in. My dad started a software company in the 70s. My mom used to program on punch cards. You know, my
Mm-hmm.
my brother and his wife are in IT and such. So I grew up around technology, but I was always, it wasn't really my thing. I didn't want to go into technology. But because I have that background and have that understanding, I'm able to often translate like hotel operational issues into, technology speak, technology parameters and such. So when we opened the hotel I was working at the time, I set up all the hospitality systems, the PMS and everything else. And then when they wanted to open a new hotel, they said, "Hey, can you help with this?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great." I enjoy doing that type of work. I am kind of busy, being the number two at a pretty busy luxury resort. So I'm happy to help out, but it would need to be separate from my main job. So I started my consulting company. I contracted directly with the new property, and I did similar things for them. It was called Castle Hot Springs. It's an amazing ultra luxury property north of Phoenix. It's one of the top resorts in the country, if not the world at this point. I highly recommend you look it up. It's amazing. But they had a lot of very unique challenges because it was essentially an inclusive resort. It's very small, 30 to 34 keys, if I'm remembering, but rates are, $3,000 a night. So I did all the setup and all the pre-opening for them and such. And then I kind of went back to my day job. I would do little things here and there. But then after COVID, well, I should say after COVID, partway through COVID, I decided that it was something that I really wanted to focus on full time. And COVID was hard for everybody across the world. It was really hard for people in the service industry who were, frontline employees, and we didn't have the luxury of working over Zoom remotely. Arizona was essentially open throughout COVID. So our hotel never closed. We went from like 250 employees to 25 virtually overnight, but we stayed open the entire time. And after that and a few other things, I just decided I would rather be working for myself. I would rather be focusing on aspects that I found especially intriguing after being in the front for 15, 20 years, whatever it was. So I started focusing on that. We do a lot with Oracle. Excuse me. We do a lot with Oracle. So Opera Cloud, Opera V5 on-prem, Opera Sales and Event Management, Symphony, Micros, etc. And a lot of what we do is what I refer to as client-side project management. So, for example, if you're opening a new hotel and you want to install products and such, lots of times you don't have somebody on your team already that is intimately familiar with all the ins and outs of those, and it's a big learning curve for the people on property to figure out, how do I set this up correctly, how do I implement, how do I create interfaces, just all these different things. Whereas that's something that my company and I were essentially subject matter experts at. So if you say we want to do this, we're like, okay, great, yeah, we'll come in, we'll do it, we'll take care of it. Your GM can focus on big picture items. Your department heads can focus on their departments. You're not paying your GM to sit there and fill out Excel spreadsheets and such. Back before Opera went to their new accelerator program, their pre-implementation workbook that you had to fill out for every property, I believe it had 138 tabs, if memory is serving, and each tab was multiple pages. So people would get this when they're like, okay, we're going to install Opera. They would get that workbook from, their sales manager, their implementation consultant. They'd open it up and they would their eyes would glaze over. They would look at it and they would say, I know this is English, but I don't really know what it says. So what we're able to do is come in, manage it from the client side with the Oracle side, and free up a lot of your time, make it a lot smoother, a lot more efficient. Make sure that we're also putting in place all the best practices that we've come across over years and years and years of working with it. And then make sure that, if things are completed on time, correctly, on budget, and that you're good to go when you're ready to open the hotel. So that's a big part of what we do right now. We also do operational consulting. If let's say that you've had a lot of turnover and you've lost a lot of knowledge at your front desk, we can come in, we can provide you with SOPs, we can do training, we can look at your current processes and say, hey, this is good, this needs some work. How do we best improve it? We do analyses of hotel systems and configurations. Does it seem like you're maybe bleeding money somewhere through your rate structure or your packages or something like that? We can come in and examine it all and identify points where you're having some issues. We've had clients that, for example, just because things weren't configured correctly, they were losing $50 a night on a package or $100 a night on a package, and that adds up over time. So, we can really come in and help clean those sorts of things up. And then, yeah, those are the big things. We do a lot because my team
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of operational experience. Like everyone on my team has worked in operations at least 5 years and at least at like an area director role. We can usually help and solve a lot of problems. Another thing we do is ongoing service and support for people in system administration. So we'll administer your whole technology system, and then we'll also provide support. So for example, and again, I tend to use Oracle as my go-to example. We do work with other systems as well. But instead of calling Oracle support, and no offense, Oracle, sitting on hold for an hour and then getting escalated and so on and so forth, put in a ticket with us. We usually get back to you within 5 or 10 minutes. We guarantee it'll be within an hour at the most. And we usually have a solution right off the bat. So we can save you a lot of time. And again, your front office manager isn't sitting on hold with a support team, or you're not entering a ticket waiting 5 days to get a response back, because we've handled a lot of these things in the past. It's literally, oh yeah, you're having this problem checking out an open folio. Yeah, we'll take care of that. 10 minutes later, it's done. And our business model for the support side of things is you only pay for what you use. So you're not paying me a monthly retainer. You're not putting down giant upfront deposits or anything like that. Literally at the end of the month, we send you a bill for whatever support you've used, and that's that. If you don't use any, great. That's good. Didn't take our time, didn't take your money, but the resource is there if you need it.
As you give us an example about opening new hotels, so are there any upcoming projects you guys are working that will help them in attracting more guests, increasing revenue, and streamlining their operations? So can you give us an overview on it?
We are working with a couple ones that I can't really mention names and such, but one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, we've really started making this transition away from everything being on premises and everything server based, and every hotel needs their server in the basement and that sort of thing, to everything being cloud based. Everyone's virtualizing servers through, say, AWS and other companies and such. And I think that where this is really leading is it's so much easier to deploy a new hotel now than it used to be. It's so much easier to have consistency between hotels, and especially in the independent market. Marriott, Hilton, all these guys, they've pretty much had this down pat for a while. They've got all these resources and such. But if you're a small independent hotel group of, say, 6 hotels, and you want to build a seventh, chances are you don't have this massive infrastructure where you can just, flip on the new hotel and you're good to go. It was historically, it's almost been like starting over every single time, and maybe you take notes from the prior properties. But now with cloud-based solutions, with being able to essentially like pull a configuration from one property, make whatever tweaks you need to make for local taxes, different restaurant names, different room types, things like that, and then just push it down to a new environment. It's so much faster. It's so much more efficient. You can keep things standardized across multiple properties very easily. And then also you're not maintaining this expensive server. You don't have to worry about like, oh, whatever, my hard drive died and now our interfaces are down, or it just makes everything so much more robust and easier to manage. You don't need to constantly be installing server updates and security patches and such, because the guys at AWS or the guys at Oracle or the guys at whoever, they're the ones that are doing that all the time. You know you're going to be fine. And then just everything being all integrated. Um, we're working on basically some systems to centralize profiles. So, if you know that somebody's allergic to shellfish because they mention it in the restaurant, it gets on your hotel profile, and then it goes into your marketing database and, everything else. I think that's a huge thing, because all too often, as a customer, as a guest, if you tell somebody I'm allergic to feathers, and every time you go back to that property or sister property, you keep getting feather pillows. It's frustrating, especially in the luxury segment.
You have been in the service industry for many years, and even you love working with guests and taking care of them. So you have an idea how important guests are for every hotel, and providing a great hotel guest experience is key to building customer loyalty and maintaining their revenue growth. As you can see that these days travelers are looking for contactless check-ins, personalized offers in terms of room rates, dining, transportation, and other services with great food options. And if we talk about the future trends, in your opinion, what are the next big trends do you see in the hotel industry that will enhance the guest experience?
Absolutely. The big one for me is the trend towards wellness, holistic wellness, taking care of yourself while traveling. I think that the pandemic was a big wake up call for everybody, whether you lost somebody or whether you were stuck at home and you weren't able to take care of yourself the way that you like to. It was mentally very stressful on everyone too. There's been a huge rise in diagnoses of mental illness and such too, from people that were essentially shut in or couldn't maintain their social circles or couldn't exercise to get those great endorphins going, that sort of thing. So I think that's really, really a big one. And some hotels and some companies have been ahead of the curve. There are places that you've been able to get a Peloton in your room for 5 years or 10 years or something like that. But the wellness industry as a whole is growing hugely. I think it just latest figures were the US wellness industry just topped like $1.8 trillion in revenue for 2023, which is massive.
Mm-hmm.
The spa industry alone is like 23 billion just in the US. So I think that not just having a fitness center, not just being able to say like, oh, we'll deliver a yoga mat to your room, but having wellness offerings that really are holistic, having healthy food in the restaurants, um, educating people on things that they can do. Like, when you check in, hey, in your key packet, if it's an actual personalized check-in still and not through a kiosk or not contactless or something, but here's some great walking trails nearby. Here's some great healthy options nearby. We do a fun run every morning or every other day or something, or here is our fitness center, and in addition to treadmills and stationary bikes and that sort of thing, we also do stretching classes, or we do meditation classes, or we've got a thermal circuit, so you can do a sauna and a cold plunge and then rest. Like all these things are really important to people's well-being, both physically and mentally. And I think that the more that the hospitality industry gets on board with that and incorporates it in an approachable way, the better everyone will be. Because you might go to a resort and they're like, oh, we've got yoga every morning. Yoga can be intimidating to people if you've never done it. Like, yoga's hard.
Yeah.
You might
Yeah.
not realize just looking at it, but yoga is hard. A lot of people are intimidated. They don't want
Mm-hmm.
to meet other people and be in what they would consider funny positions and sweating and grunting and all this other thing. Maybe in addition to yoga, or maybe you don't call it yoga, maybe you say, we have morning stretching and meditation or something like that, and you work some light yoga poses into it, like to make things easy to do, approachable, convenient. Maybe it's an evening one because if people are traveling, when they wake up first thing in the morning because they're in the wrong time zone, they don't want to get up an extra hour early to make it to that yoga class. But maybe, they want to have a nice light stretching evening or something. Just having, you know, uh, making it approachable, I think will help a lot in making sure it's holistic and it's not just, oh yeah, we've got a juice bar and we've got a treadmill. It needs to be a little bit more than that, I think. Because also traveling is hard on the body for everybody. I don't care if you travel once a year, even on a luxury vacation, like it's
Yeah.
still stressful. And then you've got these
Hmm.
poor guys that are traveling 4 days a week, 4 weeks a month for the entire
Understand.
year. Yeah, it's really hard.
Another thing I want to discuss here is how the hotel industry has been dealing with tough time due to inflation and the pandemic, affecting things like operational costs, consumer spending, and labor expenses. So, Bill, in your opinion, what were the challenges that the hotel industry faced, and what factors do you think are contributing to them? Can you talk about this?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the struggle for labor is the biggest challenge for virtually every industry across the planet. There's especially hospitality isn't for everybody. Just to put it in hospitality terms, you have to have a certain mindset to really be successful in hospitality. And I'm not saying it's a better mindset, it's just a different one. Like in order to be successful in hospitality, you need to be energized by other people. You need to, when you see a guest first thing in the morning, you're excited to talk to them. You aren't saying, oh gosh, I'm so tired from last night. Like, I hope they just keep walking. It's a very specific mindset that you have to have, and it's hard to find. So when it's hard to find anyone in general, um, and then you're trying to find a very specific subset of people, that's difficult. Obviously, inflation has affected everything to a massive amount, probably more so than is even when you see figures that say it's 3 or 4% inflation, but then you look at your grocery bill and you're paying 75% more than you did last year, it makes you question some of these numbers. When three tacos and a soda at Taco Bell is $12 now, and it was $5 a couple of years ago. It's really challenging for people. So of course, you need to increase wages for your staff because and this is something I'm a very firm believer in. You can have all the pizza parties you want, you can have all the recognition parties you want. If your staff is not making enough money to pay their bills, to take care of their families and such, they don't care about pizza. Like you have to have a base wage that is livable in order to have happy people. And you aren't going to have happy guests if you don't have happy people. So this, of course, has led to either decreased profits for owners, which of course they don't want. It's a business. They want to make money. Or they're trying to squeeze more out of the staff by like, okay, we used to have 2 a.m.s and 2 p.m.s on the front desk. Now we have 1 a.m., 1 p.m. And if it's super busy, we'll put on a mid. And the front desk manager will be there to back you up. But the front desk manager is busy doing what the front desk manager is supposed to be doing as opposed to checking people in and out. So you get the snowball effect, which then stresses people out. Yada, yada, yada. That leads to, well, we need to increase rates. Well, now less people can stay there because your rates are increased. There's just this giant snowball effect. I wish I could say there was an easy solution to this. Um,
Mhm.
I will say that, it would be nice if owners were a little bit more flexible in what they consider an acceptable profit margin, but they're beholden to banks and loans and investors and such, and I get that. So it's a very tough situation for everybody. I think in the end, though, you have to just make sure that you're taking care of your people, that you are, and I mean that fiscally. Again, not pizza parties. Pizza's great. They'll never beat a raise. Take care of people fiscally, make sure that they are listened to by their managers, make sure that your managers are listened to by the directors all the way up, all the way up the line, because the culture is going to beat everything else. If people can pay their bills and if they're part of a good culture, you're not going to have to compete for them so much. One of the properties that I worked for during the pandemic, one of the first things we did when I came in was we instituted a flat $20 minimum wage for everybody on property, regardless of what you did. For some people, this was a 30 to 40% raise. But we were tired of constantly losing people because it was a small town, and you were doing 2 or 3 raises a year because you would do a raise for 25 cents, and the guys up the street would do a raise for 50 cents, and all your people would go there. And it was just this big circle where you're losing efficiency, you're constantly rehiring, you're wasting time. We said, hey, let's just jump ahead of the entire market. And it was huge. Like, I had people that literally came up to me and hugged me, and it's not about me, but like to show how big of an impact they had. Like, they would come up to me and hug me and be like, oh my gosh, thank you. I work 2 full-time jobs. My husband works 2 full-time jobs. We have 3 little kids. I can cut back to part-time on one of mine, or I can drop one of my jobs entirely and actually be there to take care of my kids and go to their soccer games. And just, that is huge. That, honestly, like, out of everything I've done in my career, wage increases are one of the things that I'm most proud of, and been able to get them pushed through, because they have the biggest impact on our staff. Like, the biggest tangible, I can point to that and say that person's life is better because we were willing to, pay them more. Owners might not appreciate me saying this, and for that, I'm sorry. But I'm in hospitality because I like taking care of people.
So, Bill, first of all, I would like your opinion on how has the guest expectation changed fundamentally in the last few years. So, what does the modern guest expect from their hotel visit currently?
So I blame Instagram. In the past few years, I feel like guest expectations at especially independent hotels. I'm not talking about a select stay hotel where you go and you stay there for the weekend with your kids' hockey team, or you stop at a Days Inn while you're doing a cross country trip. People expect Instagram reality to be reality, and that has made it very, very hard on frontline staff. Whenever you go on Instagram, everything is picture perfect, everything is gorgeous. You're at the most. It's like a picture of you on top of the Empire State Building, and there's no one else in the picture. We know that's not the reality, but that's what people have kind of been trained to believe. So they'll go to these beautiful places. Like, I was in Sedona for a couple of years. They would go there and they would want to get this super famous picture on a place called Devil's Bridge. And it's gorgeous. If you Google Devil's Bridge Sedona, it's amazing. And everyone wants that picture. What they don't know is there are literally, just outside of camera range, 250 people lined up on this teeny tiny little trail waiting for their turn to get the picture. And they get up there and they see there's a line, and they're like, why is there a line? And then they come back and they go to the concierge, why didn't you tell me there's a line? Well, you didn't tell me you were going to Devil's Bridge. I'm sorry. So I think that the expectation of their overall experience is somewhat not in sync with reality a lot of the time. That's not to say that we shouldn't do our absolute best to make every part that we can control the best possible, because we're in hospitality again. Like, that is our goal. We want to provide the best guest experience possible. But I think that the rise of Instagram reality, of social media and such, has really impacted that and made it a lot harder. A lot of the other things are very much the same. You want a friendly face when you're checking in. You want a clean room. You want a good night's sleep. You want good food and such. But people have become a lot more vocal at the slightest thing that doesn't go wrong. Again, the pandemic was tough on people. It's brought out some of the best parts of people, and it's brought out some of the worst parts of people. And lots of times they are not afraid to share when they are not happy, which again makes it hard on the front desk. They're going to go work somewhere else, because not everyone, a lot of industries are paying really good wages these days because of this labor shortage, which isn't a shortage. It's really a shortage of well-paying jobs. There's plenty of people that want to work. It's just, they can't make enough to do it. I'm tired of being yelled at the front desk. I'm going to, go man to grill at a Chipotle and make $22 an hour, and you were offering me 16 to stand at a front desk all by myself and get yelled at. I'm just going to sit back there and grill chicken and be a happy camper, So we need to make sure that while we take care of our guests' expectations, we take care of our colleagues too. And then otherwise, a lot of people are, technologically speaking, they want instant message, or instant messaging sounds like AOL from back in the day. But they want, text messaging capability with someone with an instant response. They want to be able to check in and check out seamlessly. If they're coming in late, they just want to check in on their phone, go to the room, use a digital key, not go by the front desk. They want to be able to check out, get a bill without standing in line. A lot of these technological things that are definitely getting much better than they used to be. There's still some holes. There's still improvements to be made, like digital keys in particular. Again, unless you're with one of the big brands, it's still a sticking point to technological standards and such, but they're making a lot of progress. So I think those are all things that people have really come to expect these days.
We hear a lot about AI and big data in the hospitality industry. Now you talked about personalization. So what role would these technologies play in the hospitality, specifically in terms of personalization or hyper personalization, as we call it now?
Yeah, I think that uh, the vast majority of the hospitality industry is going to I don't want to say it's not going to be highly impacted, but because of course it will. But it's not the type of industry where you can just say, hey, I used to have 20 front desk agents. I'm going to go down to 2 managers and everything else is going to be robots and AI. Like that's, maybe you can get away with that on an assembly line or, on some other things. I don't think that's really possible in hospitality with some small exceptions. If you're talking about an airport hotel or something where it's literally just check in, get your room, check out. Like you don't need as much staff, especially once they get the hospitality cleaning robots, to make beds and that sort of thing. But I think that where AI can have a really big positive and additive benefit to hospitality is increasing efficiency, is being able to take all the data that we collect as hoteliers and action it. An example I use is if you go and you book a room online and you say, you put in the little comment section, the web comment section, I need foam pillows. Well, currently with most systems, when that comes through the property management system, it's just a comment. It's not a code. It's nothing actionable. It doesn't automatically add a trace or something to switch feather for foam pillows. And then a front desk agent has to read through all the comments and say, oh, this person wants foam pillows. I'm going to go add the foam pillow request. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Being able to have that all be automated by having an AI read and understand that comment and action it is going to save a lot of time for the front desk, for housekeeping, for whomever. And I think that what that does is as it becomes more efficient, yes, if there's less work to do, there will be less front desk agents. But hopefully it's also seen as an opportunity where the front desk agents, the concierges, the housekeepers, whomever, now have more time to do a better job. Whether it is engaging with guests out on the floor, whether it is, my standard to clean this room is 28 minutes, so I have to rush. Well, maybe now your standard is 35 minutes and you can do a better job. You can get everything that you didn't have the time to get previously. It'll hopefully cut down on overtime and extra expenses, but just basically ways to enhance the current flesh and blood people's jobs to make their job better, to allow them to provide better service, be less stressed. It all goes back to wellness, right? But to better take care of guests, I think is a really big area of opportunity for AI in the operations. When it comes to things like revenue management, AI is going to be insane because it's going to make a billion decisions a second. It's going to shop every property every 3 minutes. It's going to take all that data and it's really going to squeeze every last penny out of everything, I feel like, using all of that data. And then also the ability to manage facilities using AI, so you're tweaking boiler temperatures, you're tweaking AC, you're tweaking light levels and all that to make a more efficient property. There's just so much in there that it will have such wide ranging impacts. But I do feel like it's going to have less of an impact where it's like we need less people and more just enhancing their roles if we do it right.
Also, Bill, I would like to know what, in your opinion, are the major challenges that the industry is facing currently, and how can we utilize these new technologies to handle these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest The biggest one is staffing. There's also just increased competition. Everywhere you go, people are building more and more hotels and more big box hotels, and there's this is not my area of specialty. I know people with CBRE and other and Star and such who know much more about this than I do on the technical basis. But I feel like we're reaching a point of oversaturation and overdevelopment with hotels in a lot of markets. And then you add in short-term rentals on top of that. And it's really, you have more choices, but then because occupancy is spread out across more properties, everyone makes less money individually. They can't provide as good service, etc. I think that's a big challenge. I think where technology can help though is the people that will invest in technology, and particularly technology in terms of attribute-based selling, personalized marketing, life cycle marketing and such. The people that do that correctly will rise to the top. One of the things, just speaking about my own background and such, when I left Fairmont Hotels, part of Accor now, and went into the independent field, one of the things that really attracted me to the company I went to work for with independents was actually their marketing and their branding and everything. It was so spot on. It was so consistent across every single channel. To me, that was very attractive. It showed that they cared about what some people would call the little things. If you go to the hotel and there's an announcement about something, it's not just typed up in Word in Times New Roman and on copy paper. They've got a template for it. It comes out looking nice and matches the brand of the property. So people that focus on the marketing aspect, I think those will really help them stand out from just the bland, the whatever, and help deal with some of that oversaturation. They'll get a better share, they'll get a bigger share, and they'll rise to the top in the end.
I would like to ask that as someone who has been in this industry for a long time, what new technology can hotel operators utilize to create an overall better guest experience?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about everything being cloud-based. Not all technology and not all technology advances are immediately noticeable to the guest, but they have trickle-down effects. Like I said, with everything being cloud-based and being able to push everything out just from one segment or environment to another is huge when you're talking about setting up hotels. We've actually been working internally on kind of putting together our preferred tech stack for customers who are developing new properties, where we can say, okay, if you have this PMS and if you have this central reservation system and if you have this texting and it all works together, it all communicates, it's easy to deploy en masse. So if you want to go from 5 hotels to 50 hotels in the next 3 years because you've got some good financial backing or something, it makes it extremely easy to do that, as opposed to some of the I don't want to say legacy technologies, but when you go to high tech, there's all the companies that have been there forever, and every year there's a whole bunch of new companies. And I'm always looking for the companies that are using the newest, most advanced technology, because they aren't building on legacy products. Like, again, to use Oracle as an example, they've been around forever, obviously. Opera's been around, I think it was first deployed in 2001 or something like that. And they had this product. And at a certain point, about 10 years ago or so, they're like, hey, we can't just keep building on top of this old technology. We need to essentially start from scratch. And that's where they came out with their Opera Cloud product. And that was a really wise choice, because there's a lot of companies out there that aren't doing that. So they're still held back by all of their old technology. It's their old technology with a pretty interface on top of it in a lot of cases. So by utilizing all this new technology, cloud-based and just everything else, it really makes it easier to deploy new hotels, to roll them out, and then easier to manage. So again, you can focus your resources, whether it's money or people, on the guest experience. You can also have it so if you've got 50 different properties, you can make sure that they're all the same. So if you need to pull staff from one property at another, it's easy for them to do that. It gives you more flexibility. I think that again, it's not a sexy answer, but like I think that this infrastructure type change is really going to lead to a lot of things down the line because it's also cheaper. So then, if owners, if they want their 40%, GOP or something, well, you can get that, but then you can still spend some more on other things for guests. You can have better amenities. You can have better quality food. You can have events. You can have that sort of thing. So I'm big on efficiency, and then leveraging that efficiency to do cool things for guests, I guess, is a way of putting it. So
Yeah, I love your insight on this, Bill.
We have been talking a lot about hotels from the business side. If I ask you, as a guest yourself, have you ever stayed at a hotel where the service was just wow? Can you tell us about your best hotel experience that made your stay special? Would love to hear about that.
oh sure. Best hotel stay ever. Ooh. Um, I'm gonna start with coolest hotel stay ever, and then I'll go to best hotel stay ever. So the coolest hotel stay ever was in a treehouse hotel outside Chiang Mai, Thailand, where it was this older gentleman who it was a good at least an hour outside the city. I'm thinking it was an hour and a half. Like it was in the country. And this gentleman wanted to be an architect when he was younger. I found out later he did not become an architect because he was not good at math, and he had built a career and such. And then when he was older and he had kids, he started building tree houses for them on this property he had out in the country. And we're talking like 30 feet in the air tree houses, like whole houses, all this. He was kind of building building what he wanted to build as a kid. And his daughter, who was very smart and savvy and who lived in Chiang
Mhm.
Mai, was like, geez, we need to start renting these out. Like, we need to turn this into a hotel. So she was in the city, she was doing all the marketing and everything. And
Mhm.
he was out there operating it. And it was just the coolest thing because it was very unique. It was next to a temple, so you wake up in the morning and you hear the monks and the bells and the chanting and such. And it was in the
Mm.
middle of nowhere. It was very, very peaceful. Um, it was very rustic, but it was beautiful. His wife would make food for you at this little cafe that they had. It was the best food I
Mhm.
had in all of Thailand, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, and even though it was a very, I would call it basic experience, the joy that they had in sharing what he had built with travelers from all over the world was really inspiring. And it was like visiting an auntie, or visiting a cousin, or like a long lost relative. Like, they were so welcoming about everything, and they wanted to tell you all about everything in the area and what are you going to do. And just like it was amazing. Probably the best stay I've ever had was actually also in Thailand. It was both of these were on my honeymoon. Was the Anantara Koh Phangan, which is, if you've ever seen The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, that was set in Koh Phangan. Not exactly 100% accurate, but that's where it was. And my friend Marcus Treppenauer, who is now with Outward Hotels, he was the general manager there. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was about 70 keys or so. You have to take a speedboat to get there, and it was just over the top. Like, it's all villas and beautiful, perfect sandy beach and crystal clear waters and amazing food and amazing spa and just incredibly personalized experience. And again, it was you weren't just a guest in a room 101. Like, they knew you. They
Mhm.
they were there to make sure you had a great time, and just the sense of
Mhm.
welcoming. It was huge. And it's interesting because that's the key to a great hotel stay, is being welcome, genuinely being an individual person, not just being a number, not just being a credit card number. And I had that same experience at these two different hotels, which could not be farther from each other. Like, literally, the guy was building tree houses in the woods. And once I found out his personal
Mhm.
story, and I was like, so I was staying in a treehouse 20 feet off the forest floor from a guy who doesn't know how to do math and failed out of architecture school. Had I known that, I don't know if I would have rented the treehouse. But you've got that, and then you have this like super high-end Anantara resort that was just gorgeous. But the thing that tied it all together was just being welcome and being just everyone's nice. everyone was so nice. It just made it truly, truly memorable. And honeymoon, but memorable.
I'm glad you share your experiences. Bill, which events and conferences do you consider are essential to attend and why?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the big one for us is always high tech. We've been going for
Yeah.
years. That's kind of like the granddaddy of hotel technology conferences. We'll be there, in about a month and a half or so again. That's a big
Mhm.
one for us because, as people who help other people make decisions about technology, about where they should put their resources and such, it's very important to us to not only learn about everything that's new out there every single year, but also to make personal connections with the people in these companies so that,
Mhm.
if my client wants to implement a solution, I'm not just reaching out blindly to the company. I'm like, hey, I've got this, filling out an inquiry form or something like that. It's, oh, let me call my friend. Oh, you're interested in standards management and auditing? Let me call my friend Adam from Yippee who started the company, and like I'm just going to text him and be like, hey, I've got a great potential client for you. And you get that relationship that really helps get you through not just the easy stuff but also the hard parts. Things don't always go perfectly, and if you actually have a relationship with people, it makes it a whole lot easier to get things solved. So high tech has been super very useful to us over the years. This past year, about a month ago, I went to the first Oracle Hospitality Conference they've had since I think 2020. I think they had one right before the pandemic, which was great just to see what they're up to because they've made massive strides in the past 5 years or
Mhm.
so. Um, might go to the hospitality show this year. I'm not sure. It depends. The Independent Lodging Conference always looks interesting. We just haven't made it yet. But high tech is, of course, the big one. So.
We have been talking about your professional experience, and you have also shared with us valuable insights about the industry. With all that you have learned from your experience, and if I'm going to ask this, what advice you would like to give to young professionals, those are planning to start their career in this industry, that will help them in becoming a better hospitality professional?
The big thing is keep an open mind, learn everything you can, if you don't know something, if you're in the right place, if you're working for the right people and you don't know something, you should be comfortable asking them to explain it. Or, you, learn everything you can. Like that's really what helped me. Like I said, I did not go to hospitality school. I do not have a degree in hospitality management. I did Cornell courses, so I've got certificates and I've got, certifications and all that sort of thing. But I learned by doing, and that worked by me. When I was a bellman, I would stand by the front desk and I just watch what they're doing. I would listen to their spiel. When I got into management, I had to learn all about managing finances. And if I didn't know, I asked. And if you aren't comfortable asking, I would say that maybe you are not in the right place, or you don't have the right leaders, or it's not the right culture. And that's something you should think about because any mentor like my friend Keith, who they should be there to help you. You know, my philosophy of hospitality overall is the higher up the pyramid you go, the more beholden they are to the people below them, not the other way around. It's like, as a general manager, I am only successful if my executive committee is successful. They're only successful if their managers are successful. All the way down to, whoever's cleaning the rooms, whoever's washing the dishes, whoever's stocking the closets, whoever's parking the cars. If those people aren't successful, no one above them can be successful. So you need to be at a place that views that the same way and that supports your growth and development. So put yourself out there, do some extra work. And I'm not saying be taken
Mhm.
advantage of, because quite honestly, that's a really big problem in our industry. When I first started for management, it was expected that you're doing 12 hours a day, at least 5 days a week, often six, because it was a big hotel. There's a lot going on. There was always work to be done. And to me, honestly, and I can say this now that I'm further along in my career, like I feel like that's taking advantage of younger people, especially salaried ones, where it's like, well, I'm just gonna grind you and I don't have to pay you anymore. I'm not gonna pay the hourly guys. I'm gonna put it all on you. Um, So you need to make sure that you're in the right place with the right culture that supports you, that understands that your mental health and your wellness is important too. And they don't just see you as like, oh, a phone number three, and I'm going to have you work back to backs and I'm going to have you work 12 and 14 hours a day. That's why people leave. You need to take care of your people. So make sure that if you are a young hospitality professional looking to get into this career, you're working at a place that is going to take care of you and not just take advantage of you.
You had a wide range of diverse hospitality experiences at a very high levels. Now I'm interested to know your golden advice for hotel owners or general managers. Those are looking to improve their operations and create amazing guest experience. I think a lot of people listening to this. So, what advice would you suggest to them?
Well, this is going to sound like self-serving advice, but if you don't have the talent on your team to accomplish it yourself, bring in outside talent to help. Um, everyone has their own skill set. And sometimes if you want to make a big change, if you do want to create some amazing guest experience, let me put it this way. If you want to remodel your hotel because it's looking a little bit dated and you want it to be cool and hip and new and all that, you're not going to tell your general manager to go shopping at Pottery Barn. You're going to hire an interior designer, you know. So if you want to update the guest experience, if you want to update your processes, if you want to bring in best practices from outside your company, outside your bundle, then bring in somebody from outside who has that experience. I've worked in quite a few locales where there's not a lot of new blood that comes into it because there's a big barrier to entry to either find an apartment, buy a house, or whatever it is. So you have people that were there already and they just kind of move around the properties and such, and you don't get a lot of new, fresh ideas. So bring in somebody from outside. Honestly, well, I can't speak for other people. We don't cost that much. Like what we can do for you and help you long term
Mhm.
is a really small drop in the bucket compared to the impact and the effect that we can provide for your company. So don't just look at the
Mhm.
people you currently have on your team, and you don't need to hire somebody full-time person new to do it either. Like bring in fractional people, bring in people that can just help get you to where you want to go while your core team is focusing on taking care of your existing guests and your existing strategy.
What are some of your hobbies you do that will help you to get recharged in your free time?
Absolutely. So a big thing for me is cooking. Um, I think working in the service industry, it's very intangible. Like you do get, where I was most recently, it's like, oh, a great P&L, a great profits, that sort of thing. It's like you see a number on a page, but it's not the same as, like a lot of people in my family historically have been carpenters, have been metal workers, have been craftsmen, essentially. Like if you go back hundreds of years, lots of craftsmen in my family. And even to this day, I have an uncle who's an amazing custom furniture maker back in New York, and his stuff is beautiful. And the type of satisfaction that he gets from making something with his hands and seeing it and touching it, I think is a different type of satisfaction than what I get from operating an efficiently run hotel or something like that. So for me, cooking is a way to create something physical that I can then feed my family or my friends and see
Mhm.
that tangible enjoyment, get that feedback. So that's something that I enjoy doing a lot. Otherwise, I have two little kids, so I don't really have any other hobbies other than my what my little kids are up to. So cooking is my big one. Hiking, mountain biking. I mean, I'm here in Arizona. There's tons of outdoor stuff to do. But yeah, cooking's a big one for me.
And I believe cooking is the best therapy. What do you
Oh,
think so?
absolutely. Yeah, and again, try to make it healthy, try to make it delicious. Um, you know, and if you're cooking stuff as opposed to buying stuff from a restaurant, at least you know what's in it. You can make it delicious, and then you hand it to your family, your loved ones, whomever. You eat it yourself. Either way, it's just a good feeling. It's happy food.
This has been a fantastic conversation with you, and thanks for joining our podcast and sharing your career experiences and your insights into technology and industry as well. They were all amazing. I really enjoy it.
Oh, thank you very much, Maria Kazim. I really appreciate your time today. And thank you for doing this great podcast. I've been following along, and you guys are doing a really great job.
Thanks for watching us. Hope you liked today's episode. Share your thoughts in the comment box. Follow us on our social media at Advanced Hospitality Technologies. See you with another guest. Till then, take care and have a great day.